Hello, lovely people. It's Hila here, Saturday Night Stitch, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today's video is called 6 sewing related things that I have bought recently that are not actually fabric or patterns or sewing magazines. I really enjoy doing this type of video because it kind of keeps a track on how I'm working on being a good sewing room steward, looking after my sewing space and constantly working on either maintenance of sewing tools or actually buying new things to improve the speed with which I produce things. So today I've got quite a range of things to talk with you about. So I'm just going to dive straight into it. So the first thing that I have is because of something that broke. Now, a few years ago, I think it must have been about 6 years ago or something like that, there was this sudden craze for duck-billed scissors. And obviously, here we go, spoiler alert, mine have broken. Now, to be fair, when I bought these, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. They were fine until about 18 months ago when they fell and they started having a gap between the two blades until eventually this sort of like just then came apart. But the idea behind these duck-billed scissors was that they were supposed to make it easier for you to grade your seams. And because you've got this side that looks like a surgical thing, separately, every time I had somebody visit my sewing room who didn't actually sew, when they saw these, they thought, oh my gosh, are you into surgery or something like that? Because this looks like something you'd get off of a surgeon's tray. But the idea was that this duck-billed side is supposed to protect you from potentially snipping into your actual fabric. But I have to say that, honestly speaking, I didn't get that when I bought them. They weren't a magical pill that meant that I could suddenly do the grading of the seams faster. There was still a possibility of me actually snipping into my fashion fabric, which I actually did once or twice because I was just trying to go really fast. And I thought that these would be foolproof, but they aren't foolproof. They are scissors. They're going to cut into things, and it's up to you to be careful to make sure that you're cutting what you want to be cutting. So I didn't rate them highly for that particular purpose, but they were sort of useful. I would just pick them up and use them when I didn't have to use my Fiskars, which is the more bigger one. But they just got to a point where they came apart. So I had to replace them. And so to replace them, I decided to go to my all-time favorite cutting tool brand ever. And I like Fiskars because they also make stuff for the garden as well. And the Fiskars secateurs, oh my days, amazing. You can get carried away pruning a bush just because they make it so easy. Just go cut, cut, cut. So I got these ones and I love them. Let's see if you can hear them. Yeah, that they're razor sharp, absolutely razor sharp. I got this color. You could also get the orange one, but I just somehow wanted to get a slightly different color. They are beautiful and light, and just the joy of using a brand new scissors. Oh my gosh, amazing. So these are the smallest scissors now that I have to make up the deficit that was created by the duck-billed scissors getting broken. But I absolutely love this. It's Fiskars finish quality, so you know it's solid, it's reliable, and I expect that I'm going to have these ones as long as I've had my dressmaking Fiskars shears, which I've had since I started sewing. They're still going strong, and I got the sharpener for them, and they work really well. So that's the scissors over there. So the second thing that I got is a loop turner. I had one before, which I bought when I started sewing. And the kids were using it. They were learning how to actually use it. My twins were learning how to use it, as well as my son. But they absolutely liked it because it sort of reminded them of a bubble wand to a certain extent. And it got misplaced, which was very upsetting because it got misplaced around the same month that I was working on some sundresses that have some little spaghetti straps, and I didn't have this to use. And it's one of those nondescript pieces of equipment that you don't really look at and think about when you're in your working room that, oh, wow, that's an amazing tool. This makes such a difference until you don't actually have it. And it is so fiddlesome to do the turning without this tool. So I ordered one straight away off of Amazon, and thank goodness for Prime delivery, I was able to get it the next day. And so this is the one that I have. I really, really love using this. It just makes life so much easier. So I got this to replace it. But plot twist, it turned out 3 months later, I found the first loop turner that I got when I was tidying up, and it had just sort of fallen behind some boxes. And it's the sort of thing that, you know, it can get lost very easily because it's so small. In terms of how it can just slip down into nooks and crannies. But yeah, there we go. Love it. It's a very solid one as well. It doesn't bend as easily as the first one that I had. So I'm quite happy with this. Okay, so on a similar vein, in terms of sewing tools that you use for turning things out or threading things through, I also got myself a I don't know what this is called, but I think it's kind of like a bodkin, or this is the bodkin, but it was a set. And it came with this really useful tool that has got the space here for you to be able to thread through your elastic or drawstring, whatever you're going to be using. And then it's got this nub that is really nicely rounded that you can use to thread through a casing, if you have a casing. And I found this very useful for actually threading in elastics, and as well as this little nifty bodkin here, which has got a ring that allows the tongs. So if you push the ring back towards one end, they open up. And the idea is that you then put your piece of fabric, thread, ribbon, whatever through here, and you push the ring back down. And this grips it. It's like a non-slip grip. The elastic is not going to get out of there. And then you are able to just thread it through. Super fast, has made the job of threading elastics or threading anything through really, really fast. And it's become something that I'm constantly reaching for whenever I'm doing anything. So it's the two different types of bodkins. Absolutely fabulous. Loved adding these to my sewing room. So these ones were new. They weren't actually replacing anything. I saw them when I was browsing through looking for the loop turn, and I was like, these look like they could be useful. Let me try them out. And they are. So the next thing that I got has to do more with hand sewing, because I've been working on a long-term sewing project with Bird 1020 number 120 dress. I've actually done a lot of hand sewing with it. And when I was looking through the stuff, I actually was looking at some thimbles, leather thimbles, because somebody suggested that leather thimbles might be better because I don't like those tin ones. I just don't like them. So when I was looking at the leather thimbles, I came across this one. Show you what it looks like. So it's a Japanese thimble, which is mostly for sashiko embroidery. So I have made a sashiko embroidered shirt, and I love that top so very much. I'm a bit too precious about it because I'm worried about the sashiko coming off, the embroidery coming off, because it's just a running stitch. But yeah, I think I need to get over that. But I quite like it because it's got leather, and it's got the little perforations here for and the idea is when you're doing sashiko embroidery, you wear it like that and you push. So it's like you thread through and then you use that to push through. So that's quite good. But I've been using it. So I've been MacGyvering it to use it for my own hand sewing when I've done the hand sewing. And I'll put it on just like so. This is a little elasticated band, by the way, and you can change it to make it tighter if you want to. I think it's only one size. So I've been putting it on like that. And so when I'm sewing, I'll use, if I need to push, I'm just using that like this. And it's been quite good and quite useful, a lot better than those little tin thimble ones. So that's the other thing that I got here, this Japanese sashiko leather thimble. The other thing that I got has to do with sewing belts. Now, I have been adding belts to a lot of the things that I've been making lately because it's such an easy way to add shaping when you want shaping. And it's also a very comfortable way of adding shaping because you're not restricted to the particular circumference of the waist if it isn't a belt, which means that if you have a particularly lovely lunch or a lovely feast and you need a bit more space, you can just adjust the tie belt. So I do quite like belts for that. But I got to thinking about how I could zhuzh up the belt a little bit. And I saw a tutorial. I stumbled upon a tutorial on a YouTube for how to make D-ring belts. And suddenly I was like, aha, that's what I need to be doing more of, the D-ring belts, because I quite like the look of them, especially when they've got just one strap sort of dangling through. So I ordered and bought a set of these D-rings. So it's a set of 10, and I got the antique brass ones. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Stop focusing on my face. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, well, it's antique brass D-rings over here. And you could get them in silver or gold or copper look feel to them, but I thought that these ones would suit whether I make something that's floral or navy background. And so this is enough for 5 belts, because I think when you do a D-ring from the tutorial that I saw, you need to have 2 of them so that you can thread them and then be able to pull it to make it tighter or open it up to loosen it. So I got these. Haven't quite used them yet because I actually need to sit down and actually do the tutorial and actually learn how to make it. But one of these days, it's there. It's been pinned into the back of my head and it will get done. Next thing that I got has to do with my love of viscose fabrics and increasingly silk fabrics. So because obviously 100% silk fabric can be quite expensive, you still have to look after the garments properly. Despite the fact that I'm generally a low maintenance kind of person, with 5 kids, my laundry system has to be pretty simplified. So I do tend to avoid things that are high maintenance, diverish, so to speak. But I have been loving the silk and the viscoses so far. And I did find that with the viscose fabrics, if you didn't look after them properly, they lost their beautiful sheen and all. So I've been a bit more careful with washing them separately to the other things and not treating them like I am treating a cotton. But one of the things that I got came up because, okay, story time, guys. I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a story, okay? 12 years ago, I bought a vintage Laura Ashley silk dress, and it's a tea dress, and it is gorgeous. It's the most delicate dress that I had ever seen at the time. It was 100% silk, and I bought it at a car boot sale, which is similar to a flea market, and I must have picked it up for only £2, and it's lovely. It was a perfect fit for me. It's vintage, and I love that dress, and I was so precious about it that in the 12 years, right, up until 2 years ago, I'd only worn it twice because I was so precious about it. But about 2 years ago, I basically decided, you know what, I'm going to stop being precious about this. And we were going camping to Italy, and so I decided that I'm going to actually wear this 100% silk dress when we go to visit Verona. And when we came back home, consequently, my husband, who was trying to be helpful, because when we go camping in Europe back in the day, pre-lockdown, hopefully we'll be able to go camping again soon. But he wanted to help me because it can be quite stressful. The whole decamping process as well can be quite stressful, trying to get everything back and sorted so that we're ready for the next camping trip. He decided that he wanted to help me and he was going to do the laundry without checking with me. And he chucked this 100% silk dress in with everything else that was being washed, and he's chucked it in at a 40-degree wash, 1,200 RPM. And then he put it in the dryer with the cotton t-shirts, and it was just like, oh my days. Just when I was getting into actually wearing it and just being like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing dress. It feels so good. It got ruined, and it, you know, when you put silk, when you wash silk in a way that it isn't supposed to be washed, it can get a little bit grainy. So I was talking to my neighbor about it, about how this had happened and how I was just like really, you know, when you're just, you say you've forgiven and you've forgotten, but whenever the story comes up, you get when you're talking about it. And she suggested, she told me that something similar had happened to her decades ago, and she'd used this thing called Tennis Star. And what she did to recover it was that she'd soaked the top. For her, it was a top. She had soaked it in this for several weeks, changing the water and putting this back in, and it had recovered about 90% of the silkiness of the fabric. So she went and she got it for me to give it to me, right? And this one is an old one. I think it's from the 80s or the late 70s. But she gave it to me. And I was like, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to try it. And I did, and I tried it. And I actually managed to recover. I'd say it was probably like 80% of the silkiness. It wasn't as dry, as parched, as terrible. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So anyway, I started reading up about how to look after your silk and how to look after your viscoses. And so I ended up buying this Tenesta. So this is the modern version. So this is the vintage one from the 70s and from the late 70s, early 80s. And this is the one that you can buy now. Right. And the biggest difference is that this one has got the ingredients listed. This one doesn't have the ingredients listed. Presumably it came in a box where the ingredients were listed, but still being made by the same company, still being made in the same place. And it looks the same. And I've been using this recently for my viscoses that I've had to pre-wash my art gallery fabric projects that I've used the rayon challis. I've been using this and it is brilliant. So this, I'm going to be returning this to my neighbor and just like with a really huge thank you, because she managed to save my Laura Ashley silk dress, as well as make it so that now on the silk sewing projects that I make, I'm going to make sure that they're looked after, as well as the viscose projects. So this, you can use this in a washing machine as well, which is what I've been doing. I don't prefer, if I absolutely have to, I'll do hand washing. Because we didn't grow up with a washing machine, we had to do hand washing. And when you've grown up doing hand washing, you never want to do that again. So it's something that I generally don't like to do. I completely avoid doing. And if it can be done in the washing machine, I will do it. And this one doesn't. My washing machine has got a Delicates and Silk setting, and that's what I've been using when I use this. So so I just use 2 capfuls of these. And in most cases with my rayon dresses or with the rayon fabrics, I'm doing them 2 at a time, or with the dresses it's 3 at a time. And it washes really well. I don't tumble dry the silks. The silks, I will flat dry them. The viscoses, I will dry them on a low tumble dry, and I make it cupboard dry so that they don't dry completely. They're still just a little bit damp, and then I'll let them dry out flat. And that seems to be working beautifully. And I feel very grown up for actually looking after these garments, because the rayons, they tend to be my favorites because of the way that they move, and they're so swishy and they feel soft against the skin. And I want to maintain that, despite the fact that I'm very lazy and easy maintenance when it comes to doing the laundry. Okay, so that one went on for a little bit longer, but that's the basic story behind this Tenesta pure silk mixtures and viscose special agent for washing your fabrics. So those are the 6 sewing related purchases that I have made that are not necessarily fabric, so patterns or fabric. Now, I'd love to know if you've used any of these things, or if you've used this before. Let me know in the comments box down below. If you haven't already, do subscribe. I put out sewing related content because I am sewing mad. I'm mad about sewing, like every so often, and it does tend to be like random stuff that is going on in my sewing cave, in my sewing brain, in my sewing mad mind. So do subscribe, hit the like button. Hopefully you found the video entertaining, useful, informative, and if you've watched until this long, just go ahead and like it. It supports the channel. Until I see you next time, guys, happy sewing. Bye. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing Macau's M7349 in Art Gallery jersey, and I love this dress. So adorable. Look at that. It's got raglan sleeves over here, and it's got some princess seams going down here, and a neckband. And ta-da! I love it. Bye.